Thank you, Madam Chairman. And Mr. Secretary, again, thank you for your earlier response. I have a couple of follow-up questions with respect to drilling. We talked about the Atlantic coast drilling, and the chairman may have just asked about the safety questions, but I understand that there may be proposed changes that would scale back some of the safety provisions that were put in place after the Deepwater Horizon fiasco. Is that correct?
That is not correct.
Okay.
Our regulatory framework, our goal is this: use innovation, best science, and best practices to increase reliability, safety, and environmental stewardship. Sometimes, as you know, a regulatory framework does not allow industry best practices, nor does it allow the incorporation of innovation. There's a lot of sensor devices that are on wellheads that far exceed the regulatory framework. In some cases, we need to catch up. And I, like you, I understand that offshore oil and gas is a greater risk. The industry understands that too. Nobody wants a spill.
All right.
So our framework does not skirt. We increase safety and reliability.
Okay. I saw a recent report that I guess in response to some of the concerns people raised, there were some inspectors that were sent down to the Gulf that did some spot inspections without notice and actually uncovered some very serious violations. Isn't that the case?
I am, from a former military officer, I think companies need to be held accountable, and I am absolutely in support of surprise inspections.
Good. No, and I thought that was a good thing.
You're right, and this is why you have them.
And I thought the findings underscored the importance of not scaling back the safety protections we've got. Let me ask you another question related to damages from oil spills, because I understand that changes you've made or reinterpretation of the Migratory Bird Act would mean that oil companies responsible for oil spills would no longer have to pay damages for massive loss of bird life under the Migratory Bird Treaty. Is that was the finding? Is that correct, or
that is not correct?
Okay. Let me ask you this question: if there's an oil spill today and millions of birds are killed, would the perpetrator of the oil spill or the person who caused the oil spill be responsible for damages as they have in the past?
Absolutely. The change to the Migratory Bird Act had to do with accidental. So what does that mean? Criminally, for an accidental. Let's say an oil company is driving on a road in Montana and hits a bird in the windshield accidentally.
Yeah.
Now, should that individual be held criminally liable to it?
So, Mr. Secretary, I understand
our legal staff says that was not legal.
Okay.
And so
Secretary, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is there's been no case in the United States ever brought in that kind of situation. But here's my question. Obviously, the Deepwater Horizon disaster was an accident, was it not? Exxon Valdez was an well.
If you're coming to the conclusion that they would not be, that the modification in the Migratory Act would in any way affect the company being held responsible, there are multiple paths to keep a company responsible on migratory and damages, and this in no way affects that.
All right, because the distinction you drew just now in your example was between something that was accidental or intentional.
Criminal.
Well,
criminally negligent for accidental. There's a difference between willingly and knowingly, but to say that accidental on an oil spill, that's damages. That is not
okay.
What we're talking
I just
about.
want to clarify that, because that obviously the Deepwater
I will give
Horizon
you the list of
an accident.
Regulatory framework that will hold an oil company or any company liable for.
No, that'd be great if we get a clarification, because
they are absolutely liable, and I agree they should be liable.
I appreciate that. And the last question I have, and maybe just I'll leave it for you to answer for the record. And I know chair of this committee is in a little different position on this issue than I am, the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. I would be interested in the scientific data that you need believe needs to be collected, or the professionals at the Department of Interior need to be collected in order to make a sound decision on that. There's a lot of concern that the process is going to be short-circuited, and it would be very helpful if you could get back to me in writing with the scientific information that you think needs to be gathered in order to make a sound judgment going forward.
I can assure you that we're going to follow NEPA by the letter of the law. Skip no steps. There was no doubt that I was sued 6 times the first day I was in the office. There's no doubt I'm going to get sued multiple times over any decisions, especially oil and gas. But we're going to follow every regulation, policy, dot the I's, cross the T's. I will skip no steps in NEPA because I think the American public deserves it.
Thank you. And just circling back to my very first question, I appreciate your commitment to get your team together to resolve this Glen Echo Park issue. And hopefully we won't have to be present, but I appreciate your commitment to be present if that's necessary. Thank you.
If necessary, you and I will be at the meeting.
Thank you.
And I hope the parties listen to us.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And Mr.